Alrighty. Welcome to this Spincast Cycling Show. I'm Brian Kellison with Lisa Vries, Casey Shum. Brian White is on anniversary duty. His anniversary is before our anniversary for this show. And I'm not in a car in a parking lot. So we can get into the topics of the day or the week or whatever it was. I know it's MyWhoosh UCI World Championships or the UCI World Championships, MyWhoosh, men's and women's. We're going to touch on that, but I did want to touch on something we were just talking about off air, and I know we weren't supposed to talk about it, but we're going to talk about it because I did want to bring it up. This Zwift racing score. I want to touch on it because I brought this. I thought
that was your rule.
I know it was my rule, but I actually no, I know. I just broke my rule, and I know Felty. There's fans out there that are like, just stop talking about.
We need to start a clock. We need to limit them to 3 minutes.
Yeah, right. It's the new drinking thing. Take a swig, everybody. The Zwift racing score is only for Zwift. I came up with that. Well, whatever. Most people know that, but if you only live in one world, then it's like, oh, it's okay. But if we're comparing this, because I remember when Zwift Racing app, is that what it is? ZwiftRacing.app or whatever it is. That was like trying to take the chess model or the sort of like competition. Like if you race against someone or you do a chess match against someone. Isn't that what it is? It's like matchmaking. ELO, matchmaking stuff. And so you brought up the point, Casey, that if you didn't put data in for 90 days, and Lee said you get zero, you go back to zero, right? Like you have no score, you have no data going in. And so I think that's one of the biggest flaws with this right now is that it's owned by Zwift. It's run by Zwift. It's only for Zwift stuff, which works good in their world, but we still don't really know what's going on. You kind of know what's going on.
Because what happens to the person who won the UCI Esports World Championships? They might have a super crappy Zwift score, and everyone's like, oh, he's like 200, but he's a world champion.
Yeah, and then they go into a race, and they are, hey, this is one that's recommended for you. Because that's the thing is, there's that recommendation for you. So it's still a work in progress. All right, let's move. That was the only thing I would, unless you guys have any more. I just want to touch on it really quickly.
I think I'm still in the let it bake.
Yeah, of course, let it bake.
There's some things that I see that feel good. Right, it during the week when I watch races, like, okay, this movement felt right. This movement didn't feel right. So I think there's some things to work out, and I want to see what happens at the end of 90 days. And we touched on that a little bit before the show. Is when I have a full 90 days of history, when I hit day 91, do I start seeing races roll off and you neutralize a little bit? Like, will you continue to gain until then? So I think and what 90 days is, after Christmas. So we got some time to go here. We're not even a month in.
Yeah. All right. That was a good touch on the thing that I said that we were going to touch on, but I wanted to get it out of my system. So it's done. The UCI World Championships happened yesterday. It was men's and women's. Congratulations to all the competitors, because that was a tough race. What was it? It was like 3 races. It was the sprint, it was the strategist, and the all out. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
They had their own naming and everything like that, but it was essentially a 1 minute effort or like a 30-second effort. It was like a sprint, a 4-minute effort, and then it was like a 20-minute effort.
So do we want to talk about format quick? I mean, just what the format was?
Yeah, let's go format. Just to recap for people that might not have seen it or they haven't gone back to watch it, and just go kind of what led up to it.
I heard a lot of grumbling on the first stage that they kind of added, right? I think stage 2, stage 3 was what some of the semis were, right? The prelims.
I think all 3 were part of the
the first. That sprint one was not. No. So that was I
remember seeing that though in some other competition. Was that in the Zwift games? It might have been the Zwift games or something, or it might be I thought there was a sprint in some competition. Whatever. We're reckless speculation now. But I believe that weird one sprint. No, wasn't that in the press release?
They talked about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we talked about it in a press release, and then we broke it down. Yeah, way back when they pushed it from like when they were going to do it in like February or March, and they're like, hey, we're pushing it to October.
Yeah.
Well,
So
we
Chad's
remember the
saying
first
that
time.
That's
sprint
right.
was in the. So Chad's saying that sprint was in one of the qualifiers. So what
Okay.
was unique about that stage one was it's a short course, couple kilometers with I think it was a 300-meter sprint point, and all the points were awarded based on the time, the fastest time that you set in that segment.
Yeah.
Period. So you had so many minutes. It wasn't a lot, 10 minutes or something like that, to do circuits and set the fastest time. But you were on course with other riders and it was draftable. So it isn't a first across the line kind of
Nope.
thing. It's
It was
all about
fastest.
time.
And there was strategy. There was the
It
United
was.
States in the men's race. Spoiler alert! If you didn't watch it, we're talking about it, so we're spoiling everything here. The 3 United States men just fell off the back, and they kind of just were like chilling back there, and it was like this sort of like they got really, and the men raced after the women, so they got to see a preview like, hey, this is how it's going to play out.
Well, what was interesting to me on the US men is yeah, they strategized, and as soon as it happened, like the gate opened and they just didn't move, right? Those couple guys just didn't move, and everybody else rolled away 3 watts per kilo. And I'm like, oh, that's a mistake, right? They don't have the draft to get through it. So they were basically, I think, we'd have to ask them. I think they were just pooling up to work on it amongst themselves. Like they were going to lead each other out and set their time together kind of thing. What ended up happening is the pack got into that it's a track racing kind of thing, right? Where they're just they're just almost standing on their pedals, not moving, looking at one another, who's going to launch first. And the US was doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And when they hit the afterburners, they hit the afterburners at the same time that the pack decided they were going to launch. And like they couldn't have strategized it that way, but the pack just gave it to the 3 guys that sat back and were doing their own thing, because they just touched the back of the pack as everybody launched. And
we need to see if we can ask them, because did they practice that with other people to come up with that strategy, or did they come up with it? Did they come up with it how much before? And maybe they don't want to share this, but like, is it we saw the women do it and then, hey, that's what we're going to do? Or is it, hey, we kind of practiced this a bunch and we learned the system of like, hey, if we just really go all out, let them infight, let them sort of like hold. It's like, like the track stand, because I remember the commentators saying that it's like, because it was in the velodrome, even though it wasn't on the bank, it was like a track stand where they were going like 0.3, 0.6 watts per kilo. And like, you're not going to get that momentum. But if you just go, hey, I got 2 other strong people. If you're one rider, I got 2 other strong people that are working together, the 3 of us can go faster than the blob of not doing anything.
Yeah. The ladies just sprinted the first lap, and that was it. Like no one even seemed to attempt to set a time in the ladies after the first lap. They kind of rolled into it at 3.5 watts per kilo. They sent it on a flyer. It is what it was what it was. Yeah, the guys was really interesting because they did end up setting a majority of the times on the first lap, but some guys really got caught out by that slow lead in. They were at the back. And I think the other thing that played weird with the men is there was 22 in there for 20 points, for 20 places. So the guys that had no points, it was like that's a kick in the gut, right? Like I'm not going to be the guy getting 0 points. So a few guys at the back did solo efforts and they were able to do solo efforts and jump up to top 10, some of those guys, but there's a few of those guys that made a run at it a couple times, and that burned a lot of matches. I think. That's a big run.
That is a big run. And so that was the risk reward. It's like, hey, we're going to go and do our own thing, 3 of us as a team. And that's a team aspect, And
in the end, well, I don't know if we want to break, what happened in the ladies completely yet, but that sprint decided that what happened in that sprint was enough to decide the winner in the ladies. And
correct. Let's get into that. Let's get into that.
I mean, Gabby Guerra, I'm sure she did a fantastic job, guys. Gabby crushed it. We all love Gabby.
Congratulations to all the competitors, but the podium, Gabby was awesome.
Mary Kate and Gabby had an absolute throwdown. Who was the other lady up there? Lou Bates.
It was a Swiss rider.
Furrer.
Yeah. She was. I just watched the interview.
They absolutely turned themselves inside out. but Gabby outscored the winner everywhere but that sprint. And that sprint, I think Gabby ended up, she was, I think, out of the top 10 maybe in the sprint. And she lost by 4 points. But Mary Kate on that last climb. So we were talking about the format, right? Second race was basically a short course with a hill in the middle, points at the bottom of the hill, which were essentially sprint points, points at the top of the hill, which was a climb, and then to the finish. Ladies got a gap. Mary Kate and Gabby, right, got a gap on stage 2. They took it to the line. Gabby out sprinted Mary Kate to the end. Really, and to me, that was a power move there.
Oh, for sure.
Finish that one off. I mean, Gabby was hungry.
Oh, they were all buried. Yeah.
And then the third race, that circuit, that whoever thought these courses are brutal. This is not. I think it was Gabby. All you Zwifters, this isn't Zwift racing.
I think Gabby said it in her interview, where the interview was like, hey, what's the toughest thing, or what's the thing about esports? And Gabby saying, like, I race outside, like, you have to be on the power the entire time. So it is like not where you have the ability to rest and recover. It's like you're on the entire time. And like you said, the sprint came down to being a factor, and it was the first thing. So you're having that strategy of like, hey, these are all going to come into play at the end. And they did.
They did, but it was the racing part of it. So let's start there before we get into production stuff.
Yeah.
Right, like, because let's start with some pretty big highlights, guys. These were fantastic races.
Yeah,
the efforts that were put in, the solo move in the men's, the battle at the top of the ladies. I mean, it came down to Mary Kate and Gabby. Whoever crossed the line first won on the last last line. That was it, and they were together. Führer was coming. Gabby, I think, was in third place coming into that last race. Like, that was absolute excellent racing. And the men the same way, right? The men came into the final. I couldn't figure it out. I watched the first 2 races, and I found out who won before I got a chance to watch the third race. And I'm like, how did Osborne win? Like,
Osborne was out, and then it was just placings. It was like 1 or 2 placings on the final lap. Lionel was like, he had to place like second, because Osborne was like 40 seconds up, so he knew that those points were going to be there, and it was just like it was coming down to like 1 point, which was that sprint thing. So it was like, it's very important to strategize, but also put out the efforts.
When Osborne to have the guts, let's keep the right words here, to have the guts to go. What was that, on lap 2, and to just send it? And to keep going, and to keep pushing it,
and the group not to get together and work, because I bet you Lionel was like, please work with me, and they're looking at him like, no, we're not going to work with you. And that's the thing. That's racing in a sense, where it's like, hey, I'm not going to burn my matches. And then Osborne's like, I'm burning my matches. So usually a breakaway like that works out sometimes even better, because the group doesn't get all together.
Well, I'd like to know what too is they're all in the same room in this particular race, so they could talk. Like, I'm surprised there wasn't some footage of like Lionel looking over, going, "Dudes, someone help here!" Like,
That's exactly what I was just gonna say, Lee. Is like, I'd like to know someone in the room. Like, was Lionel yelling at his country mates? Because I think he had one other country mate in the race. Like you got to get up here and help me, or like, guys, quit infighting, and we're letting the win go. But honestly, at the point Osborne was gone, it was Lionel was the only other guy to really, I think, have a shot at it there. Like,
and then
he was the one
that
really needed the help.
He needed the help to win, but there was a podium. There was a podium spot for the young Finnish guy who's like 18 or something like that.
Yeah,
and
so it was,
and he was driving. He was doing really well, because to get on that.
I didn't know him.
He was up. I think is it Bowman's? What's his name?
Started with a B. Yeah.
Bowman.
Him, and was that Hayden Pucker? Oh,
yeah. And so, Lee, if you want to get up to stuff here, but yeah, like the way that the for the people that haven't seen it or don't know the whole thing, it was in person. So how many, like 20 competitors, 20 plus competitors, all had their own setups. They didn't have it was elite trainers, from what I understand. It was the Justo.
Yep. Justo, yeah.
Justo, the Justo 2 or Justo 1, what, I don't know exactly what it was, but they had their own bikes. But you couldn't really see too much. They didn't do a lot of the tech. It'd be kind of cool if they had some tech videos. They had some rider interviews, which was great. But so everyone had the same trainer. Don't know about gearing or anything like that. We don't know about any of that. We'd have to more time and more information will spill out, and then we can touch on it again maybe. But so everyone was in person. Weigh-ins were there. They probably did their performance verifications. It just reiterated that. I don't know how much time they had on the bike pre-ride. Yeah, it's Casper Mormons, the young Finnish kid. Yeah, he's aged 18, and Lionel's 35, and Jason, who's a two-time winner now. He won, I think, 2 years ago. He's 30. They're in the building, so they were. I don't know how long they've been there. So if there was jet lag or anything, it's like that. That's all. We have to talk to the athletes to see how their experience was. But we're just speculating on what it was like to watch from our perspective, and seeing the faces, seeing the fans blowing on their faces, and they're behind the thing. They're next to other competitors. Yeah, they could speak out. Most people were not. I didn't see too many people yelling or anything like that. Plus, they were spread out. It wasn't like you were right next to it wasn't like you were next to another similar country or the same country that you race for, like Jason's in German. So he wasn't next to other Germans, and they what was I trying to finish my thought here? Oh, they were all looking in one direction, and so they were all seeing. They were just somewhere on a tier above them, so people could look down and see other riders, but other people couldn't see behind them because they were on two things. It was definitely set up for the in-person spectacle of the people in the audience, and the production. I mean, we can get into the production as well, but the main thing is everyone was on the same trainers. So previous world champions, everyone was on the same trainers, right? They either got the ones that were remote. Yeah, this is the first one that was in-person world championships. So the last world championships were all kickers, Wahoo kickers. So they were supplied. They were sent to them. So this is a new thing where it's like, or not a new thing, but a new thing for being in person for a UCI world championship.
And these were tested. These weren't just all on the same trainer, but these were tested in lockdown. Like these trainers were tested as they all were accurate with one another. The actual venue looked good. Like when you saw the camera shots of the venue, it looked really nicely laid out. The seating in there, it looked very top tier, very, very fancy. I think the in-person spectacle was probably great. Just from the camera shots that you could see.
There's the video if you need it, Lee, in case we want to get some stills of the video. I don't know if we're allowed to play the video, so let's not play the video.
So the racing was great. We didn't mind the format. We thought the venue looked good. So then the production.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit more about the competitive aspect of it. Is when you did in-person stuff, were you with the other competitors, or did you have your own sort of like thing where you guys were people more camaraderie and, hey, this is kind of cool? Or what do you think they were going through? I think they were like focused on, hey, what we're doing, or do you think it was like a, hey, this is a good thing for everybody, so let's all have a good time, let's try to do it? Or do you think there was some seriousness to it?
There was some serious. I'll say from the 3 times that I've done in person, 2 of them especially, because they were after we were all on Zwift, like we all knew one another pretty well. 2 of mine were basically shoulder to shoulder, right? The width of the bike across 10 people. We were 10, not 20, like this was. And then one of them we were basically nose to tail, 5 going each direction out of the center. But so shoulder to shoulder, you could look down the line and see everybody. Like Scotty Weiss and I in Roanoke, Virginia. Scotty was 2 bikes down from me. We were in a breakaway together. We were talking. Right. Like, I'm like, Scotty, I'm going to pull all I can, but I ain't got much. He's like, no, just hold on, buddy. Like, that kind of thing. Like we're going back and forth. the Kiss E-Crit that we did in LA at
Yeah, there you go. That's good.
was
Good
a
shot,
similar
Lee.
thing. Yeah. So you see how these 3 are in a pod together. We were 10 stretched out just like that, just in a row. And we definitely were talking amongst the competitors at IRL, like for sure. And then the fans there, especially at the CVR one, they were kind of allowing some people to come up and mingle around the bikes. It was a little more casual. So like I'd have somebody sitting in a folding chair next to me, like shouting in my ear,
Yeah.
like kind of coaching me through it, kind of thing.
That's one thing I didn't see a lot of. I saw a production person walking around, but I didn't see a lot of coaches, like which they did in previous years. Like if you like when they like if they do it in like Denmark does it, and I think what's another place that does it? Like the Netherlands, they had places, or Finland, they had it where like they had like a bunch of athletes that were competing, and they had all the sort of support staff there to kind of help encourage or whatever, and yell and hey, do this, do this, do this. Where here you're kind of isolated. You're like in the peloton.
Do you think
riding.
does that come down to though the seriousness, right? Like this is serious. This is world championships now. They need to protect the environment. They need to keep people away from the trainers. They don't, like they don't want to risk anyone being
I
able
agree with that. Yeah.
tamper. So I think that's I had the impression from watching this that the stage was probably off limits. If you saw like after the race, a couple of the female riders came down and would like they showed on camera maybe hugging a loved one or something, but that loved one stayed off the stage.
Yes.
Like the lady got off the stage to do that. So I think they maybe kept that clear.
I think that's good. I think it's
I do
good,
too.
but what it does is it doesn't make it as visually appealing, other than just seeing the athletes suffer, right? But when you have like when you get the car shot, and like when you have a video edit and you can cut to the car and the team car and they like, yeah, go. That the encouragement, or they cut to the sideline on a football match and they see the coach, or they see the different things going on. That sort of adds to the storyline of, hey, like Gabby knows that she has to go deep. But if she had coaches or somebody there yelling at her even more, it just causes it's more for the visual audience, right? Not so much for the athletes. But I'm with you on the integrity of the racing. And not there, you could have manipulated the things, or you could knocked out the power and lost the power. All these, that I agree with.
I think I would have liked to, and I'm speculating here just based on what we experienced. I don't feel like they had room mics going. Like in the stream, we couldn't hear the room. We heard the commentators. We didn't hear the room.
No.
Where on most of the other live events that I've witnessed in things like this, either the commentator was close enough that you could hear the room, or they actually had the room kind of mic'd up a little bit where you could hear the crowd in the room through the stream a little bit. You could hear the shouting. You could maybe even hear a little bit of the riders speaking to one another. Like you could tell on the video, like you could audibly faintly hear that, when you could see them talking, that kind of thing.
I don't know. The thing is, I think they were going so deep that there was like, because I was thinking maybe they can interview them while they're talking, or while they're there was like nothing, because they were just on the entire time, or they were so invested in mentally. Because I remember, who was it? Mary Kate was like, she was saying at the and her winner's interview was like, the mental game was so important, like to be so focused on it. Now, was that strategy wise, or was that, hey, I'm just focused on the race, and any distractions would throw her off, but it does take away from the visual element and
I will say,
the viewership.
Mary Kate is intimidating. After watching her interview after the fact, like she's tough. She's like, this is a mental game, like psyching out your competitor. I was like, holy cow, like she is tough.
Yeah. Which is cool. This is, so if you can see, for the audio only audience, we have a shot of the warm up, and it's like two like stages. One's like a lower stage and then an upper stage. So think of it like a band. You'd have the drums up above, the lifted up the stage, and then on the regular stage is where the rest of the band is playing. That's sort of like 3 competitors, and there's 3 competitors right behind them. And it's Sweden, then USA, and then Brazil, right? So they're not next to a teammate where they could talk to a teammate and go, hey, how are you doing, or how are you feeling? It's like they were just isolated. So I think maybe teams, like grouping teams together, if there was an opportunity to have more teams, because some countries only had 1 rider or whatever. So I like the balance that maybe I'm for the splitting things up, but it would be nice to have, you know, more discussions, because once riders split off, like you were down the line, like you're saying with Scotty Weiss, is you could see him 1 rider over. But if you were in a breakaway of somebody that was 5 riders away, could you speak to that person? You just lucked out with that, right?
Yeah, I lucked out with that. And I mean, you still could, but obviously you're yelling 5.
Yeah, you're yelling more.
You're not having a private conversation with him.
Yeah.
But yeah, there definitely was some of that. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to fault from a format perspective. I don't have any.
I think it's good.
I think it all went pretty well from a race perspective.
From like a live event thing, I think it was really good. I like the little stand in front, and you can see the riders, their rider's picture, the rider's name clearly, and the country they're representing, and then underneath it is like the update of like what they're doing. So like, hey, this is the warm up, right? It's like it's a good video wall from a video perspective. I thought it was really cool. Now for the broadcast perspective, I think they could have spent a little bit more sprinkling in the different riders. I think they were, it's like, I don't know how much rehearsals they had, because a lot of riders don't want to go and ride if it's like, it's still a show. Like it's still a production, and you have set shots. Like I've been on productions where you're like, hey, like, let's say baseball and football, they have specific cameras set up for specific things. Like all the camera people knew where everything was. They knew it was all pre-planned out. But knowing the athletes is harder to gauge on like who's going to be in the race and how are we going to cut to this and how are we going to do this. That's where it's like when it comes to like a live production, like television production, getting that sort of like direction and getting that. I think we could have had more, because I prefer seeing the athlete along with the video of them racing, because I know Lee and I talked about this offline. I think we were in the Discord talking about how they would spend a lot more time on the full athlete and not so much the race. And they, instead of doing a 2-up, because we're so used to the ZMS races and the community races and then just the regular Zwift races, where you have a 2-up, like you have the Zoom room. Yeah, it's not the greatest photo, but it's at least a rider, like their avatar, and then their video feed of them next to who they are, and you can see that correlation between the two.
Yeah, I felt like the ladies' race, they didn't show hardly any of the physical riders.
Yeah.
It was almost all game coverage, and they were getting a lot of flack in the chat for that. And I don't disagree with the feedback they were getting.
I turned off chat. I just watched the thing in full. I wanted my own interpretation, but I'm sure there was chat. I think Lee told me some of that stuff.
And
chat was difficult, especially on YouTube.
Yeah, it was tough. But then I rotated. I felt like they I felt like they tried to adjust for the men. And I think, Brian, that's where you're saying like they were showing more of the in-room shots for the men.
Yeah.
But it's like maybe they hadn't prepared for the split screen kind of concept.
Yeah, that
so
happened.
they were trying to accommodate the feedback, but they didn't have good enough scenes to show both.
Yeah. And that happens in a live broadcast, because I've been in live broadcasts before where it's like you have a first round or second round or a first half or second half, or I've done music productions where you have a musical show and you're like, hey, the first act, you're kind of the camera crew, like the camera operators, the directors, the technical director are all trying to get a feel for things. And then by the end of the show, you're like, man, we're cutting a great show. Where this is so like that's why the in-person stuff is so important, but it's also like from a visual standpoint and a production standpoint, it's tougher to do because it's so many moving parts. There's so many athletes, so many camera people, like you can't just cut to these people right away unless you have the webcam right on them. Like you could cut to like that'd be great if you like in esports and like other esports where everyone's stationary. So like you're not chasing an athlete around like you would in a football match. Where visually, like this shot you have up now, this is like a wide angle shot of the men's race, right? This is the first race, the sprint, and you can see how it's staggered. They're not symmetrical. It's all staggered. It's very visually appealing for me, but it's tougher to do when you like we just said, you don't have the cuts of like, hey, like what is it? It started to be Osborne used to start to right away. And it should have been like a 2-up between Osborne and Lionel, and like this is what's going on and how much is going on. And then that leads me into the stories of the athletes that are happening, laying out right there. Like there's so much prep and layout and get anything going. But then the race is happening and things are happening so fast, and they're fast races, right? The sprint is so fast. It's like, it's hard to even know what's going on. And that's why I wanted live scoring. Like it was so hard to kind of know what was going on. And the commentators are saying, hey, we're getting live updates. It's like, how are they not pulling these things live? How is it not just a live update?
And if they just show while the races were going on, if they showed the game, the points in the game were accurate for the entire event.
Yeah, but they're just hard to view.
They were a little bit. The production part of it, I think a lot of it is just experience from what I've experienced in covering races in any way, shape, or form. The more experienced people in the game are better at picking up the action, right? When Nathan Guerra is controlling his own race coverage and he's able to see the orange number in the 5th spot and click on the guy and get there, like to pick up all that action, where I don't even know MyWhoosh really, really well. And the couple times where I got frustrated was they're looking at some random guy, like on the sprint segment where there's not much going on. They're looking at some random guy and I'm like, hey, 4 riders above, he's going 12 watts per kilo. Like somebody click on him. What's going on? Like I'm seeing it happen and they're not even talking about it. And that's like, I think that's experience.
No, it is experience. It is experience, but it's also like you have some. I'm sure they had in the truck. They probably had somebody that was clicking on the games. They probably had not familiar with the athletes, right? Mm-hmm. But what I'm saying, what my point is, and that's a valid point. I'm saying my point is there should be a scrolling on the bottom of scrolling of like who's got the most points, and as soon as the points come up, whether the athletes have the points or whatever, it should be pulling those points immediately.
It's like the NASCAR ticker, right? The NASCAR ticker with gap to the leader kind of thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And the easy thing, sorry, Lee.
You were relying on people in chat, hoping that they were good mathematicians.
Yeah.
And the chat had a more up-to-date, scrolling who, because so many people were like, he needs to come second. He needs to do this. He needs to do this.
And I got to give a shout out to Emma. Because at one point, Emma even stopped her fellow commentator and was like,
I remember hearing that live.
I've got the points in front of me. Stop there. I don't think you've got
he
was about to give the wrong standings going into a race.
I really like both their commentary. They're very, very strong. Even when they do the Sunday Race Club, they're very, very strong. They do live sports. They do like GC. I think they do not GCN anymore, but Eurosport. They might do some Eurosport stuff or whatever they do. They're very good, and they were very quick on trying to do the math, trying to figure it out. Yeah. What I'm saying is sometimes to offload them doing the math and everything to break down is you have a proper statistician, and they were doing their own stats, and maybe they had a statistician, but having them be the voice of the athletes or telling the athlete's story of like, hey, Lionel's got to dig deep, blah blah blah, which they were doing. I'm not critiquing them in the quality of what they're doing. I'm saying for us to build our own story in our own head and go, hey, Lionel, like we can see the point going. We can see Lionel in the first, but when they would be on screen, Lionel would be in first place, and then it would be like Jason was off in the breakaway, and you're thinking, okay, that might happen. You're not seeing that score underneath, like, oh, how many points is he going to get, or what places does Lionel have to be? Because I was waiting for that little screen on the top left of the total scores, and that would scroll. So when people would go through, like they'd be watching somebody would scroll, and it would redo that. Like I know that somebody's trying to place higher because everyone's competing. Everyone's competing. Everyone's trying to place higher. I want to know what the top 3 are going to be, and I want to know, or like show me everything the entire time. And my point is, they should have a machine. They should have a separate computer to pull that live, and then build that into it, right? So instead of going, hey, we're relying on the game, have a secondary thing that's just the stats, and you're pulling the stats, and you could have categories to pull all that stuff because it's a computer game. You should be able to pull that live.
Yeah, and they were part of what confused me at one point on the ladies is they were trying to pull stats that, in my opinion, didn't matter.
Right.
Like after heat 2 or stage 2, they put up on the screen the points from stage 2, which showed Gabby in the lead, and I'm like, oh, Gabby's in the lead. And then when the next heat started or the next stage started, I'm like, wait, no, Gabby's still in third. And I'm like I don't care after stage 2 what their points were in stage 2. I want to know what their points are total, right?
Yeah.
They should never put up on that screen anything other than the points in the last segment, right? Like in this last sprint or total, right? Like that. Don't confuse us with any other points, either a single segment or overall. That's it.
Yeah, there's like 2 things that are necessary for me. There's 2 things that are necessary, and everything else is secondary to it. Is the points total, because it's a points race, and the gaps between the riders.
Yeah.
If there's a breakaway, how much? Because I was thinking Jason's got 30. He's like, oh, he's only 20 seconds up. Maybe Lionel could get the other people to ride and bring him back. And then all of a sudden it was like 30 seconds. I kept looking at the 30 seconds. Then it was like 40 seconds. And I'm like, okay, well, now he's gone. So he's got those points. He's going to get the 40. He's going to get the double points at the end. Where does Lionel need to go? And then who's fighting against Lionel? That's where like I wanted to see that. So we're such a data hungry sport. And I love baseball, and baseball is crazy on data. All these other things like, like, oh, average, and are you 0 for 3 and 0 for 1, and they got a hit last. That's all great after the fact. But when you're like up to bat, or you're doing the last things, I just want to know what's the strike count? Like how many strikes do you have left? How many balls before a walk? And what's the score? And if there's anybody else on, those are like the key things. All the other stuff is secondary to that. Like people's heart rate and all that. That's oh wow, there's this racing format is so fast. We don't have time to analyze, and not that they were doing that. I'm just saying that that's what's on screen. Is you're looking at the watts per kilo. They're saying watts per kilo because that's how you see the effort being put out, and they need that from a broadcaster standpoint to go, hey, everyone's going in the red or everyone's going super hard, but like for me. It's just those 2 things I need to know. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. All right. Cool.
I was going to say I touch base like ZMS Esports Studio. They had a good comment of the commentary was on
Damon.
fire.
Are we sure this is a good comment?
It's a good comment, it's Damon.
All right.
Commentary was on fire.
I'll allow it.
Commentary was on fire, and it made it worse not seeing the relevant action. And that's what I found as well, because the commentating, they were talking about the lead, and then the stream was showing the guy in 14th place riding solo, and they would keep going back to the guy in 14th place. And I'm like, why do they keep going back to this guy? And at one point the chat was going, they've gone back to this guy 4 times. Why do we keep seeing this guy? And they're talking about someone sprinting at the front.
They did that at one point on the final climb too. I like on the last lap coming to the finish line, and they popped into like 14th place, and I'm like, come on, you're killing me here.
Reckless speculation is this is like a pro. I don't know where they're from. They come from worldwide. I've worked on productions like this, and you get a bunch of people together. They're really good at doing their job, but if they don't know the content, it's hard to do. That's why I said if they didn't have any rehearsals and they're like, hey, this is they're just trying to say, hey, the athlete's going to come in. We're going to click on the things. Boom, boom, boom. Where the commentators have been doing these races, they do Sunday Race Club, they do other sports. It's that sort of like when you're cutting, you're trying to do your own story and you're sometimes not hearing the commentators. And so you're trying to match what they're talking about unless they're specifically saying, hey, can the truck give us this, or the director, can they get us this? Like, I need this shot because I want to tell this story. That's easier to do when you have a slower paced game. Yeah. This is so fast. I mean, these races are so fast. I can't believe how fast it was.
They were so short and so fast.
Yeah.
They didn't have time to show the guy slogging at the back. If it had been like a 2-hour race.
Yeah.
And there was some strategy and there was a break, maybe for 10 seconds, you can go back. Oh, look at this poor guy. He's back here. But as soon as they went back to the guy in 14th, they missed 3 things that happened at the front.
Yeah. So I'm happy with what they have, because we have a starting point. We have a starting point of like, hey, what can we improve on? And I think that hopefully they're taking those notes and they're already debriefing on that to go, hey, how could we get better? Okay, well, we've done this. We've had one in the bank and we can do it. Like a commentator is doing this sort of thing. Hey, we have the crew or a new crew get on. Hey, this is what we want to learn from. So this goes into my next thing. Are we cool with like talking production and moving on to sort of like future stuff?
They need to have more angles, more views of riders. I'm sick of the straight back or the straightforward view. There needs to be way more views, and they need to change those rider animations.
Like in the game, you're talking game stuff. You're talking game stuff.
The sprinting. Well, I mean, it's sort of production, because from like a Watt viewer standpoint, I'm tired of seeing people stand up in MyWhoosh for really no reason.
Yeah.
You know, in Zwift, it's what, 200% of your FTP when your guy stands up. In MyWhoosh, it seems to be random whenever it happens.
So that was a lot of so that's kind of the other topic in chat that was getting pretty rough.
That's a game thing. I'm talking.
Was the game arguments, right?
Game improvements are separate from the live event productions.
Yeah,
game animations.
To me, the game choice for UCI, or however you want to say it, right? That this was MyWhoosh and not Zwift or whatever. To me, it was a non-issue. Like, there's nuances about MyWhoosh and the animations that could be better. You know, but had this exact same race format went off on Zwift versus MyWhoosh, would the results have been different? No. Like, I think the same winners would have come down. I don't think there's a major difference in the games. I got to give MyWhoosh credit. They didn't have any major issues. They didn't have game crashes. They didn't have any obvious trainer problems that were throwing people out. I mean, Zwift hasn't had a live event that didn't have trainer dropouts and things started late and game crashes and, you know, stuff like that. So, okay, for all the big orange brigade out there, it wasn't Zwift, but I don't see where MyWhoosh was an issue either for this. So,
because I was just looking at all the riders, so they're competing here. But there was that other photo you had before for the non-visual audience. There was during the warm up, so not everyone warmed up at the same time. So that's what I was saying. Like, did anyone not show up? Like, there was no DNSs and
no, there was 20 ladies and 22 men. They had a full stage. I don't think there were any major surprises. I'd say. And I don't. This doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I had Ollie Jones as a podium, and he didn't quite get there. Was it Bjorn Andreasen or whoever it was that had it last year? He came from out of nowhere at the end, like he was out to lunch the first 2 stages, and all of a sudden he clawed his way back up to 4th. But I mean, I don't think there was any big upsets or no shows or anything like that.
Oh yeah. No, it's very cool. All right, so the game improvements, yes, the game needs to get better. The production needs to get better. But we have a starting point of like, hey, how does it get better? There's menu, chicken strips.
I'll take chicken strips and fries.
Yeah, spin cast. All right, so no, I don't know if that's on the air, but Lee's scrolling through about a bunch of stuff. So my thing for what I would like, or potential, this is sort of like not reckless speculation, but like outlandish optimism. How about that? Outlandish optimism. I want more points being scored throughout the entire race instead of just across the line. I feel like if you could accumulate points, it would have made it more like more people could like, hey, if you break away and you're getting a point for being away from the group, and you're like have these weird other point structures where you could like do more stuff, then you can have more people have competition on the last one where you're like, hey, the last one, yeah, you could boost up for like 20 points instead of sort of like, hey, it's going to be the top 5 people or whatever.
I was that first race, a lot of people didn't care for that format, right? That fastest time thing. And I was thinking in my head, how could you do something? Because I didn't mind it, but also like, how could you do something similar to keep that exciting the whole time? And I got thinking about it, and it was like, why not do that stage where your cumulative time
is the
through
point.
the sprint for 10 laps is what, or 5 laps, make it a lap thing. And it's you have to go through the sprint 6 times, and the person with the least amount of time in that 300 meters across all 5 attempts. So every lap you had to sprint, right? Like you had to go for it every lap. And you had to try to stay in the group. You'd have the guys that would try to go solo, right?
Or if you sprinted you could get a bonus from sprinting. So it incentivize people to sprint and like burn up all these matches at the beginning to kind of get a good head start, so that you don't have to be in the hole. You're actually in the better off going into the harder stuff.
Bonuses, right? So maybe you keep the format the same, but it's the fastest, your fastest 3, like the top 3 of your, if you add up 3, gets an added, couple bonus points. That last circuit is 4 times up that right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's a few bonus points for first, second, and third overall climb time, all 4 added together, right? Like you can't sit out a climb. No. You can't phone it in off the bat.
And my point being, this is not outside racing. The more that I see this over and over and over again, and the way that they were saying at the end of the race, like Gabby and Mary Kay and stuff, it's not outdoor. Like, why are we trying to replicate outdoor stuff? I think it's not going to work to like do like a 2-hour race. I think there are events that could do that, but I think this sport is now becoming its own thing instead of trying to be a simulation. As much as I love simulation, this needs to branch off and become its own thing and have these. I think the point system is probably the best solution, because you're on the entire time. It's not a race of attrition to a certain extent of like the really, really long races. It's the, how do you game the system, or like, how do you just do gamification and get these points sooner? And like maybe you build a huge buffer and you're like, wow, I don't have to do as well in the second and third race because I actually can do it in the first or second race and sort of survive the third race. Or no, I'm not going to do any of the, that sort of thing. That's what I wanted to see. I was like, there needs to be more action, more points. It's like this cumulative thing that's going, instead of like, oh, they did sprint, and then we sit around and wait, because the athletes they have to recover and gas. But I mean, like, I want more going on. That's what I want.
It's the more potential for strategy, right? Because IRL racing, especially when you're getting at this level, right? Like they strategize in the bus before they get on the road, right? With their whole brain trust. Here, it's, you got to figure out that strategy mid race. And the more you can do some of this point stuff where guys can play a different strategy. And it didn't even click with me until they said it on the stream. These guys had all done these races before, these guys and gals, but the first time they did these, they just needed to qualify. They didn't need to win. Yeah. So when you just need to secure a position, you're going to ride a lot different than when you need to win.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I love the strategy side of it. And that's why I didn't mind that first sprint part being in there, because it added to the strategy.
I liked the format. I even liked the Zwift Games format, or the way that, it was Zwift Games. Zwift Games had a bunch of different, I think it had a bunch. No. They did.
It was like 3 back-to-back.
Yeah, it was 3 back-to-back for the national wasn't it for the national? It was for the national. It was for the elite national championships. That's what it was. That's where I went, because whatever, I was in those races. The short everything matters sort of take on it is actually benefit. I think we need to lean into that. I think we need to head that direction. Yeah. So that's my whatever optimistic.
If there's one
Optimism, whatever
major
it
thing
was.
for them to focus on, then it's just about. I think it's about getting practice in the production side of it. I think if they just had more practice in it,
Oh yeah.
it'd be 80-90% better,
Yeah.
even
'Cause
with
this,
nothing else added.
okay, from everything that you did with the CV arcade stuff,
Yeah.
whatever, and then the stuff that was like at the Yorkshire didn't they have like a bar or like whatever, the pub, like the Zwift pub, where they would do the in-person stuff? There hasn't been one since like 2019. There hasn't been an in-person competition, high level or fun.
There was that Olympics thing.
Oh, right,
Pepe
the
went and
Olympic,
did, and Barney, I think, did maybe.
yeah.
Um,
That's the only one.
That's been about the only one. I think we did.
And that was more exhibition than really competition.
It was an invite kind of thing. I think a CVR's last one, I think, might have been Vancouver. I did
2019?
LA. Yeah. Mine were 2018. So there was one set after mine, but it wasn't a full year. It was like 6 months.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's been a while. I think there's been a few more like little regional things. Like I know this is, like a bar in St. Louis had the Missouri e-racing championship things, right? Where they set up 5 trainers and people could come in and race on Zwift kind of thing. But like a Zwift sponsored or a other platform sponsored, no, I haven't seen anything like that.
Right.
And they need that. I think it shows.
I think there's a thing for it. There's a market for it, or if there's interest.
It takes money. It takes money.
It definitely takes money. Yeah.
I mean, MyWhoosh opened up the briefcase for this one. That's for sure. Yeah,
definitely. And maybe Zwift wants to do world like Zwift games person in like the at the end, not the hey the annulment sort of like rounds that I was in. But when you get into like the final thing where you have like 10, 15 people, the in-person thing would be kind of cool, and then you can go, hey, how do we build off of this? But I'm for remote stuff still, because I like the idea that the sport is its own unique thing and you can do it from your garage or your house. But the performance verification and the honesty of the riders, the in-person stuff outweighs that, right?
Well, the remote also forces production to show more of the game.
Right. Yeah. But we can have webcams. I was in Zoom rooms before, and you can do a webcam. I mean, my show looks good. Doesn't your show look good? Lee, you got a good show. Casey's got a good show. He's racing every week. Casey's racing every day almost.
Racing a lot. But
a lot of people don't have that setup. A lot of people are just on an iPad, and then they don't have, or an Apple TV, and they don't have the ability to, a lot of people don't stream. So having that ability to stream or even connect to a like a Zoom call or a Discord call, that's where it's like, hey.
It's a big thing if you don't have the right setup. Because I remember Canadian Nationals required video verification of a power test. And I had a lot of buddies call me and say, how do I even do that? As a streamer, I'm like, this is a piece of cake. But for someone who doesn't have that setup, it was overwhelming for a lot of people.
And there's accommodation for the athletes and the support for them, on site. It's like, oh, you fly in. It's like people are flying in all over. And they're like, I'm jet lagged. I can't, I got to fly in early. So I have to take a few more days off of work if I'm not, somebody who's independently wealthy and doesn't have a job. They have to fly in, be ready to go, fly their own equipment, or is it equipment supplied? Prepare for that, stay training, stay fit, stay on top of all this stuff. That all comes into account. So for the future of the sport, as we get to the the annual kickoff of where this sport is. Remember, didn't we do this like so it's almost a year for this show, which is crazy to even think about. The state of e-cycling was that that'll be like next year, but like the state of e-cycling is growing. This is the rebirth. Didn't we say this was the rebirth of it? I think that's what I said a year ago. But we have a live event. We've had 2 live events, the Olympic things, the Olympic Games and the UCI Olympic Games. But yeah, like Casey just said, that was a pretty penny that they spent.
And somebody commented this in the YouTube chat on that. Shout out to MyWhoosh, and this creates some mixed emotions with some people, but MyWhoosh is committed enough to the sport that there are some people that are choosing to actually make an income off of the sport
Right.
now, and that was not happening 12 months ago.
No.
And they may need to be doing some other things. They may need to be doing some other cycling disciplines, but you can actually go all in at the elite level and put a few dollars in your pocket doing it. And some guys are actually making ends meet trying to do that now.
Right. Can Zwift say that? MyWhoosh can say that, but can Zwift say that yet?
No.
So nobody else can say that, but MyWhoosh is like, hey, we're funding, or we're allowing it. We have a racing series that is allowing people to do this as a profession.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the prize pool is, but I mean, they aren't messing around. You win Cat 1 men's on a Sunday, and I think it's a cool $1,000 bucks.
Right.
I think you're bringing home. I think men's and women's.
It's probably like going to be hopefully it's going to be like low tier tennis.
Well, didn't Barney say that a team, if you win as a team, the team gets $6,000 US?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So
that's where it's really at, is the team aspect. Yeah. Marblehead's telling us here it's $1,000 US to win Cat 3. I know it was.
I'm sorry.
600 Cat 4.
Is this one of our co-hosts is chiming in on chat?
Don't get caught typing there, Marvel. You might be in trouble.
You're on your anniversary.
Whatever,
Get off
buddy.
the phone.
Whatever, buddy. Reckless speculation. He is not focused on the anniversary tonight. No. So does Zwift sort of step up and say, hey, you know what? We want the Zwift World Series, because they have prize pool, but is it enough to where it's only there's a price? Correct me if I'm wrong. It's a prize pool in the Zwift World Series, right?
At the elite level, yeah.
Yeah, at the elite level. But is it frequent enough? Because the Sunday Race Club is once a week. Yeah. So if within the season, I mean, I don't think maybe they take a week break. So it's like 4 races and they take a week break and then another 4 races. So let's say 42 of the 52 weeks in the year. I don't know how many take off, right? So let's say they take a couple weeks off. So can there be competing tours? Because there's like the whatever, the bowling. It'd be like bowling. Think of e-cycling as like bowling tours, where like, hey, it's like a $5,000 cash prize if you come in first. If you're good enough to stay in the sort of like the top 5 of that, can you make a living of it, or can you supplement some of your stuff so you're not a full-time worker? Yeah. So this is what is this? This is, oh my goodness, I can't read this. Category 1 prize money. Okay. AED, I don't know what that is, and that's Arab Emirates. I think it's Arab Emirates dollars, right? So I don't know what the conversion rate is. But no, I'm thinking of like, for the audio only audience, Lee has the slide up for the pricing for
US. It's roughly 25%. It's actually
okay, so 25%,
27%, but yeah, roughly 25.
Reckless speculation. Can in the next year? I know we're going to touch on some of the stuff. Whatever. I'll just bring it up now. Forget it.
So Cat 1, you can win $2,500 a week.
Yeah.
If you win
$2,500 a week, and then if you're on a team that's doing well, okay, so then sponsorships are like, hey, you're getting out there, you're getting prize money, but then the sponsorships can help, right? So you have a sponsorship side, and then you have race winning, which is whatever prize money, right? So if you're like this sort of, or like golf, you do like a low tier golf tournament, because there's like not the PGA Tour, but there's like local events, and you can do like bowling, because it's a very individualized sport, but you can do team stuff and go, hey, we're going to do team stuff. Would Zwift be willing to sort of like start this sort of prize money seriousness? So you go, hey, we're going to have athletes too. And then the athletes are going, hey, we want to do both tours. Cause there's the, what is it now? the racing stuff. There's the NHR. It was like there's the NASCAR is the top, and then they have like other small stock car
Lower
racing.
leagues, yeah.
Yeah, they have small racing, and then you can have a small team. So I think this is the kickoff to where what you're saying, Casey, is
even down to
athletes
Cat
can
4.
say, yeah, even a Cat 4, yeah.
Like this is still decent, like $500 for a win in Cat 4.
Yeah.
So I got third place at my CBR event in LA. It was around $2,000. So yeah, that's four wins in Cat 4.
Now, are you doing your own expenses? You flew out there and you stayed.
Yeah, that was
that's the thing. Yeah,
that was not an all expenses paid trip either. That was, when I got all said and done, travel expenses and all that, I was only putting $500-$600.
Yeah, that's like it's going to be like your bowling tour and your like tennis. They don't pay like they invite you. You have an invite. You can come to race or you can come compete in our tournament, but we're not covering that now. There can be sponsorship deals that cover that. That's the thing is like sponsorships go, hey, we'll do the whatever expenses and like that.
There were riders that had that in those.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
That somebody else paid their way and they were wearing a jersey of a local business.
Oh yeah, that's. Like that. So yeah, this is good for
on them.
Yeah. So hopefully Zwift, if Zwift is serious about racing, they would consider this as not just the next phase of the sport is, getting the elite level races, prize money, so that it makes the athlete, it's worth the while for the athlete to get it, to focus on their weight, stay on all the time mentally, be, like weigh-ins and all this mental stress that goes into that. It's like, oh, I'm just doing it for fun. It's like, come on, I think we're past that from an elite standpoint. Yeah. The Zwift racing score, which I know I said I wasn't going to talk about, but the Zwift racing score is not this. They're not talking about this. The casual, I'm going to do my workout or my heat training and I'm going to do a race. That's not that. We're talking competitive, elite level racing. Yeah, you can have, like MyWhoosh has 4 categories. So yeah, but you have to you have to jump through all the hoops, right? So proper performance verification, proper trainers. You have to have the right trainer. You can't just do it on your whatever Jet Black. What was the thing called? What's the new one that everyone's hyped
Jet
on?
Black Victory.
Victory. Yeah, the Jet Black. That's probably not going to be in the competitive world where you're gonna get prize money.
So what I'd like to see is put the similar Sunday Race Club on Zwift. Do you get the same? A lot of people don't go do Sunday Race Club because it's MyWhoosh, right? They've got this MyWhoosh thing, right? I'm not going over there. I'm not playing in their sandbox kind of thing. But I would bet if you put the same thing on Zwift, you'd still have about the same participation because you still got to jump through all the hoops.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Right? People hate hoops.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, it is not easy to do those tests. It is a hassle.
Oh, it's stress.
You
just don't want to do it. If you're busy and if you have a life, like I have no life, but I have a work life, like I'm not into it right now. I did it for like 3 or 4 years from a master's as I grade my beard.
I think if it wasn't at 3 a.m.
That's the other one. I would be more willing to jump through the hoops if it wasn't at 3 a.m.
I have everything to do it. I'm like, I'm not doing it at 3 a.m. Like if I could do it at 1 o'clock at Sunday afternoon, I would do it. I would probably jump through the hoops. And
every time Marvel talks about it and he's super excited, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm going to jump through those hoops. And I go 3 a.m. No. And then he gets all pumped about it. And then I'm like, yeah, that's a good idea. No, 3 a.m.
It's tough. I did it. I think I've done it twice and it's just tough. And now those were like a year ago. The races are much more different. Like last year, when I did it, I think it was like last year. They were like, it's always 45 kilometers. Every race is 45 kilometers. So it's a long race. But it was like, the Columbia climb to infinity. And there was all a huge climb. It was like 20 minutes to the base of the climb. And then it was like climb. And I'm like, dude, I'm not the climber. So the rolling races are the more ones that suit me. Would be the ones I'd be probably willing to wake up at 3 a.m. I just haven't gotten to that world yet. But yeah, I think you guys are right that it's like if Zwift was doing it, you'd still have 25 people per category.
Yeah, it does speak a little bit though to the elites that are coming over doing the Swift World Series.
Well, look what
their passion for the sport still, because they're not coming to Swift for a paycheck.
No.
If they want the paycheck, they're going to Sunday Race Club. I think there's still a little bit of, they're going to keep their foot in both of those doors because it's not guaranteed one's going to take off over the other kind of thing. But I think it's also they love racing. Most of the guys racing at that level just love racing.
Oh yeah, when you're at that level and you can turn off the frustration of things, and you're in that world, it's fun. Like when I was competing in my master's races or doing better in the local races, this is outside stuff. Yeah, it was fun. I was looking forward to each race. Now I'm not looking forward to races because I'm not there. But when I build it back up, hopefully I build it back up, then I was looking forward to it. So
yeah, people don't like the hoops.
That's why you're right on about the people are the
nationals.
I'd race on Zwift with money and everything. Yeah, totally cool. Oh, you got to do all
nationals
this stuff
for 2023 had a decent amount of people in it, but they seriously relaxed the hoops. The previous nationals where they had the full on like Sunday Race Club type hoops, I had 5 people in my category.
Yeah.
5. And as soon as they relaxed them, there was like 30 plus.
Yeah, don't give them what they say they want. Give them what they'll do, right? If you did the full on like full weigh-in, full dual recording, full performance verification, it's going to be crickets.
Yeah,
it's just a lot.
Like, I have to do a 20-minute effort and a 5-minute effort, or a 12-minute. Excuse me, a 1 minute, 30 second, a 5 minute, and I have to do. I can't just do a ramp test. No. You got to do all this.
So let's segue that into where's the middle ground? Starting on November 1st, we got a nice little new series kicking off again with, was it, I forget his name now. Is it Rich, maybe? FRR, Flamme Rouge Racing?
Oh, Flamme Rouge Racing. Okay, yeah, promote it.
He keeps tweaking the rules just a little bit, getting a little bit more dialed in. It's a good community race. It's not hard to join, but he's kind of towing that line of I need to keep it a little bit serious.
Now, why is he going serious?
He's not going full blown serious, but I think it's a little bit of grumbling. I think coming out of the riders, right? Okay. Some little bit of the funny business, right? Too many Social Security checks paying for trainers, kind of people blowing up the front of the pack. So I think top 3 or top 4 categories. I'm in a category that requires a smart trainer, and it requires a smart trainer to be paired to the game. No power meters. So I think heart rate's required, stuff like that. He separated the starting pins where it used to be basically split in half. The top half would be one category, and there's one starting pin. The bottom half would be the other. But we're competing within it's 10 categories total. So like people in my category could take off with the leaders and I'd get separated, and they're getting an advantage because it's a bigger mass start. So this series, they've broken it apart into it's 2 groups at once. So the top tier groups, then the next 2. So instead of being 2 starting pins, now it's 5 starting pins, 2 categories per pin. So there's less gap top to bottom in the starting pins, and I think he's able to do that because numbers are up. It's much larger starting groups now. That I think that's a big plus. Oh, puppy. The E gap rules have changed. Used to be the guy who was the fastest person in your group in that race is who set the time, and your E gap is your gap to that rider. Now the guy setting the E gap must be a full tourist. So if Lee skips round 1 and round 2 and he comes out and blows up round 3 and he sets the time, his time doesn't matter because he's not a full tourist anymore. So you can still come race, you can still come play along, but
I like the E gap thing. Yeah. This might interest me into burying myself and doing these races because I like stage race stuff.
they've created a little app, and I know how we hate our little third-party apps to get things to work or whatever, but they've created a web page that you can open that will tell you who is in your category in your race, and I think
See,
whether
that's
they're a full
helpful. That's
tourist or
helpful.
not. So I'm not trying to do my own sluicing to figure out who I'm racing against. While the race is going on, I can open up this other web page, and it's going to tell me if they're a full tourist.
Oh,
It's going to tell
okay.
me if they're in my category, all that stuff. So I think
That
these
is,
are
okay.
big changes.
I'm interested in this. When does this start? Next week?
This starts on the 1st, and this is
Okay.
10 days straight. And I'll tell
Oh my
you, if
God.
all you all watched us
Have a dentist
brutalize
appointment.
France, you guys, this is not the same as the France one. It's not going to be easy, but we are not climbing mountains. We don't have a 2.5-hour stage.
Okay.
So it is no rest days, I don't believe. But
I need a kick in the butt, so I might do this.
yeah, so pull up
and you can, what times are these races?
That's the other thing that's good is they basically go off like every 3 hours or so.
Okay, so I can do it in the mornings and
yeah, you can choose flexibility. Okay. That's really good about the timing. So
that's the middle ground. I like this middle ground.
Yes, and then like you were saying earlier, they've got a GC, an E-Gap competition. They've got a green jersey competition, and they've got a KOM competition. The other thing they added is they added the broom wagon. They set a time percentage.
Oh.
If you go out and you're going for green jersey, you can't sprint in the first 2 miles, get your green points and phone it in.
Yeah.
If you're more than 10% off the back, you get a points penalty. And they state in the rules what the percentage is for that leg. Like,
I'm very interested in this.
Yeah.
These little fixes,
these are good
like
rules.
You said, middle ground.
Yeah. These
are smart, and I'm interested in doing it just to learn about it as well.
It allows you to do.
Sorry, my dog is excited about Flamme Rouge racing now.
There's so many points within there's so many races within the race on this.
I like the sort of like what's that web page that says, oh, these are the people that are in your field and they missed it or whatever. That's helpful. The E-Gap is great. And then the yes, they do. I know, it's exciting. It's very exciting. The what is it? What was that last thing you were just talking about? The
the broom wagon.
The broom wagon. Yes.
The virtual broom wagon. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool. Where it's like, hey, you still got to finish if you're gonna stay in the competition. Like you can't just like
a certain amount of time.
These were all
certain amount of time. Yeah. You still got to put an effort in. You can't just I'm gonna noodle.
You can find points in my stream from the France tour that I did that I complained about all 3 of these things, and I'm like, he's listening, he's addressing them. I had a different idea on the people like coming in after 2 or 3 legs blowing it up, but I'm like, if I know they're not setting the E-Gap, I don't care. I don't care so much about it, right? I didn't want them coming in and screwing up my 10 days of racing because they come in fresh on day 6 and blow up the race that I'm racing all these fatigued guys.
Yeah, as my dog is trying to get me to pet her even more. Middle ground. Okay, so the random race, hop in, get an effort. That's like low tier. Then there's the high tier, which is the World Championships and with World Series, all the other stuff, right? So this middle ground is good. This is my test on this is just go with the flow. Like don't lose your mind in the Zwift riders or whatever places where people flame out. Like, dude, this is still rec league. It's got some stipulations where it's like, it's more organized where like, hey, you can't use a weighted bat or a fungo bat at the softball rec league. Like that's a rule. Like people can't just rip the ball out of the, this, what this is like, hey, we're trying to have a rec league and we're having a couple rules because people wanted to improve the experience.
Yeah.
That's where I think this falls into. And that's a big area where I think this could happen on a full-time basis on any platform, right? I think that's the where it should be. So I'm actually interested in doing this.
Yeah, he seems to keep doing. There's 2 other things he actually did here. I forgot till you started talking. And this has always been in the rules. There is he calls it, I think I forget what he calls it. But basically he's reserving the right to spot check a rider's setup and wait. So random verification, whatever. But he actually kind of threw a comment in on one of his things, like, if you're out of line, you might want to get yourself in line. Like, it's almost like a, hey, I'm going to start doing this a little bit more now. So, and the other one was, there's no more of this soft, it's the sandbagging thing, right? He put in a hard, fast rule. If your velo increases so much, a certain number over the cat that you started in, you automatically move up. This is how you move up. This is the E gap you take with you. This is the points you take with you. These are the guidelines to when you move up. But there is no more like the ZRL, like, oh, if I get 4 races in, I can be an A+ in the C race now and blow everybody up for the season because I passed the rules. Like, he's just saying, if your velo goes this far out of bounds, you move up. And that's your responsibility. You move up. You're not completely out of the league. You get to carry your E gap with you. You get to carry your points with you. Things like that. So he's been, the changes he's made are very thought through, very specific. I really like what he's doing.
Oh man, I'm gonna try this, and it's on Zwift exclusively currently, or is he open to other stuff?
Now when you sign up, he asks if you've got a MyWhoosh and an Indy Velo and that. So I don't know.
I think this would be cool.
On those.
If this could be Biketerra, because then you could do your own. You could do your own stages.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the future. But I think the rule set is good. Like, he could. That's why he might. This is what he's doing, is sort of platform agnostic.
Yeah.
In a sense of like, hey,
100%. You could use
I'm
these
just doing my own
anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. And then if he wanted to do more in-depth points, performance verification, then he could just do third party stuff or whatever. But obviously he's looking at it from his end of things, because he might have back end stuff for Zwift. Is that how he's doing it? But is he pulling people's fit files? Is he pulling people's fit files, or what is he doing?
I think he's probably just doing it on
Strava.
I think he's addressing issues. I think probably more than anything would be my hunch. But I mean, if this grows enough for him, I mean, he had overwhelming input to on the last one. He had so many to sign up for the last one. He had to upgrade his website because his website was crashing. So like, he's getting. I think we had 150 people finish the France one.
That's good, because we had. I don't know if you guys ever did this on RGT. We had little stage races all the time, and I would like the Moon Riders, and I think there was the other one was, I think Thomas from he's the one who did the the stage race on Indy Velo. So, but he would do stuff. There was a small little racing promoter community, or race creation community across platforms. Now with Biketerras, you can do a lot. You can do your own event more, right?
Okay.
And so there's a little bit more control over that. And he might have his own. Well, you can do that now too, because it's a club thing on Zwift. You can create your own stuff, but creating your own sort of like niche place for stage racing, I think is good. I'm interested in doing this.
I'd like to see, like, if this grows for somebody doing something like this, I'd almost like them to see them do the 11th category, that is the full blown, and just like contract with Bjorn's company, right? And
right,
like, if you want to join the 11th category, that is the full blown justification.
Yeah,
you pay the entry fee that pays Bjorn's fees for the verification side of it, right? Like, you just pay $30 or $40. That covers the verification per rider charge, and see if it goes anywhere. It may not. But I'd like to see something like that grow out of this. But I think it takes time, right? And we've figured out now it's not next month, it's next season, right? I mean, this stuff grows so slow.
Yeah, but I'm more interested in a stage race sort of thing than the one-off sprint. Like, it's
motivating. I would have I would have never rode that nasty last 2 courses had I not already put in 8 stages and been like, okay, I've gotten this far. I'm top 5 in the sprint, or top 6 in the sprint category. I just have to finish these last 2. But it was 3.5 hours of mountain climbing to get there, and I had to do it.
That's the beauty of stage races.
Yeah.
Is it is you've put a bunch in, and that's why you feel bad when you do have to drop out or something happens and you drop out.
Yeah.
But all right, Flamme Rouge Racing coming November 1st, which is
November 1st. Yeah. So registration's
Friday,
open
November
now.
1st.
Yeah. Get registered.
If that is Friday, I don't know where it is in New Zealand and Australia. Usually like Saturday. They're always like a day ahead. Like, oh yeah, it's already Saturday. It's like, did you guys have a Friday or did you miss it? That's a joke, not a good one, but just a joke nonetheless. Is that enough? We good? We got any? You're muted, buddy.
Oh, always muted. I have a topic, but we can cover it
let's do
another
it then.
day.
Go for
Are
it.
you sure? Okay.
I think it's bigger than what it's going to be for the
We need
next
a
10
longer
minutes.
show. We need a longer segment. Okay.
It's just a general negativity in chat on a lot of these live streams of racing coverage. I've noticed is getting worse, and I think it's a topic that needs to be addressed.
Okay.
You know, maybe in the very near future.
We'll have it on with Brian because he's pretty negative. That's another joke.
I mean,
didn't sit well like that. Didn't go well.
And rave.
Oh my goodness.
We rant and rave ourselves, but some of the comments were way off base.
Oh, they're always off base. That's why I tuned out.
I had to turn the YouTube chat off, and I went back to Twitch. Not necessarily criticism, just, you know, as On the Rivet posted in Discord, just people not having any clue of what they're talking about. Or civility. Like, just, I mean, it was tough. I had a really tough time because I was streaming while watching Worlds, and I was like biting my tongue. I just really wanted to grab my phone and wanted to like respond to everyone within chat. And I'm like, I'm trying to ride my bike here, and it was difficult. You know, there's just a lot. It's so easy to type negativity in chat. Yes, we touched on some few shortcomings of the the event, of the broadcast, but people were just hammering it hard, and it's just not coming from a place of like constructive criticism, just like, this sucks.
Keyboard warriors,
you suck,
as they say.
This is the worst ever. You know, I have the best computer in the world, and I can't even play MyWhoosh. It doesn't run well. You probably don't have the best computer in the world. Like, it's just, it was tough because there was a lot of people being like, yeah, go person, you know, raw team. And it was like every fifth chat was like, you suck, you suck, you suck, you suck.
Oh, the one that got me was they just would not quit harping on the jerseys. And I'm like,
oh yeah,
dude, they didn't make them wear a fur coat. Like, this is moisture wicking jerseys. There's actually UCI rules about having your shoulders covered, right? Like, I know there is in some sports. Like,
you can't.
They were ranting because it was like child labor laws were being violated because they made them wear zip up jerseys on stage, and I was like, oh my gosh, like they're not punishing these people in this terrible environment.
There's technically streaming. There's like YouTube probably has their own. Before they changed it, you could not stream online bare chested.
Right.
And then they changed it because women were not able to do it because it was a violation, but then men were able to do it. And then they were like, no, it's both. And so there's a lot of fitness streamers that would stream no shirt on. Right. And then it was, discrimination against women who could not. You know, it's like, hey, we want to wear, and then that's the sort of thing. So I think that is a good topic that we need to have another long form chat on.
Well, it just ruins the enjoyment. I'm trying to root people on, and I'm trying to have a good time, but I kept on looking at chat, and I would get just disappointed, and it took away from like an event that in general was pretty good.
Yeah, it's because that's why I turn off Zwift chat. Like,
actually, I went to Twitch. It's funny because I actually went to Twitch after turning YouTube off because it was like the general Twitch community, and everyone was almost saying the same thing, like, screw YouTube. We're back in Twitch because the community gets it. Like, the community was getting it and enjoying the event.
Yeah, good people usually get it, and then there's the the bad apples that shine a light. That's why a lot of negative comments. You could have 1,000 good comments, and then people just focus on the one negative comment, and then when it's all negative comments and people just feel, freely wanting to express themselves in any old manner, when they don't have a regulator, a self-regulator, that's the problem. Is people go, you may believe that and it could be wrong, but you don't need to share it with everybody. And so, keep it to yourself. You use the old adage, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Exactly.
But we've lost
Except
that.
here.
Well, I don't know about this show. We say reckless speculation all the time. All right. That it? That's a good one. That was a good one.
Have any reckless speculation tonight, really?
No,
Not really.
not too much. The reckless speculation is, will we survive 1 week to do our final show, or for our year anniversary show, whatever it is?
Anniversary show. I don't even know, what are we going to talk about? Year in review?
Plenty. We're going to talk about RGT. The new RGT is Bike Terra, and did it replace my RGT fix? I did some we're about to wrap up and I'm going to start another topic. The Bike Terra stuff is coming along. There's a lot more developed. So here, this is the preview for next week. Get ready, everybody. We're going to have the year. They're going to have the anniversary show next week. Okay. We're going to touch on what has changed in the year, right? And are there too many platforms now? Because we're stressing about how many platforms. Oh, because we all want Zwift to do better than what Zwift is doing. And most people can agree with that. But now there's a lot of options, and it's like, do I have time for all this? So there's the preview. Play the music. Know we're talking about those two topics, and then we'll be on next week. Hopefully, Brian Marblehead chatting in his show stream will be there with us next week.
Thanks to Dr. Weebles for showing up in the last minute.
I'm supposedly going to meet Dr. Weebles next weekend. He's coming down. I don't know if he's still on course for an in-person meeting, but Lucas is going to be, I believe, in Fresno.
Nice.
Fresno Ironman, or Fresno Marathon. I think he's doing it with another member of the community, Eric. Or is it Gaines with Doc now? So I'm thinking I'm meeting those guys next Saturday. But I got to schedule around my FRR, my Flamme Rouge Racing stage race. The music's still playing. We're out of here. Thanks, everybody. Bye.